All right, it's a special episode of the Cedric Maxwell Podcast. I am Josue alongside Cedric Maxwell, of course. And I say special because we got a special guest. We got ESPN's Andscape's Marc Spears joining us. He's a former Celtics beat writer. And I mean during the good old days, right, Mark? During the Big Three era, during a special time in Boston with time for changing. Max, you were there. I'm sure we'll take a trip down memory lane.
Hey, don't make me too old because there was a different Big Three. You got to tell Celtics fans what Big Three you talking about.
Oh, that's right. That's two other generations, right? That's right. The KG era. Max, of course, can tell you all about the 80s. Man, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna have some fun for sure. We're gonna talk about this year's Celtics, the Warriors, as both teams seem to be struggling after the big showdown that happened last weekend. But Mark, let's start with the Warriors. Let's start out west. It's they put together probably the most
Warriors, man. Let's talk about Boston.
We'll keep 5 minutes. We'll keep 5 minutes for the Warriors.
Talk about no Warriors, man.
Oh, what happened? Well, because after they beat the Celtics, they haven't won a game since. Is that what it is?
No, I cover the whole league, man. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I just live here. Let's talk about my time in Boston, man.
Okay. Boston. Well, let's start out with Boston then, because the thing we talked about a little bit, beforehand, to me was so interesting, and
Joe, we were talking. Let's just talk about Boston. Don't worry. I don't be around the Warriors that much.
Well, the reason I bring up the Warriors is because, after what happened last weekend, it seemed like things were going to shift. The news came out about Steph Curry, but yeah, we can keep things Boston. I mean, Boston right now coming off a loss against the Magic that some people saw coming, but just the way it played out, it didn't sit well with a lot of these reporters and of course the Celtics fans. Max, how do you call it? What's going on with the Celtics right now?
I think it's just readjusting. I think a lot of people had the Celtics, to me, as a lot higher. And I think that there's not a team in the NBA that's going to ever shoot the way that they shot throughout the season. I mean, this team was shooting the lights out. And guys like Sam Hauser, their bench was exceptional. But you look at the last couple of games, they depended more on Tatum. They depended more on Brown. Mark, you've been around, and like you said, you were around for the different era. But man, your relationship with Kevin Garnett when you first coming here in 2007, that was really interesting to me. You were telling me some things, and I was like, you were ready to get out of Denver because you wanted a kind of a upward change.
Yeah. Well, real quick, Joe. In terms of the Celtics, I think they'll be fine. It cycles. Warriors, I'm getting nervous about them because of Curry's injury and just because they've been up and down. But I'm much more worried about the Warriors than I am the Celtics. But to answer your question, when we go back, and that's why I was messing with Joe, let's talk about Boston because I got so much to unpack there. I had Garnett on a conference call about a month ago for a story I did on his time with the Timberwolves. And I started it by thanking him. And I told him that he changed the direction of my career. And what I mean by that is I covered the Denver Nuggets for the Denver Post from 1999 to 2007. And toward the end, my career got stagnant. And I tried to get a columnist job at the Denver Post, didn't get it. And I was trying to find a different avenue to help my career just go upward. And so Garnett gets traded to the Celtics, and obviously Ray just got there to play with Paul at a time when I was given an interview to cover the Celtics. And the finalists were me and the late, great Sekou Smith.
Wow.
We were finalists for the jobs. He was in Indianapolis. I was at the Denver Post. I ended up getting a job. Sekou went to the Atlanta Constitution and Journal, where he ended up covering the Hawks and ultimately ended up going to NBA TV. It worked out for both of us. But, it was a great change for me because I went from covering a Nuggets team with Carmelo and Iverson and Chauncey, that was just saying, to a team that could win a championship. And I immediately got to go to Italy, go to Rome with the team, went to training camp. Remember we went out there, said, went to London, covered a game in London. And I knew when I saw Ray, Paul, and KG took that picture at the Coliseum that this team was going to be something. Like, this was going to be something. Like, these guys were like gladiators taking a picture at the Coliseum. Like, wow. It was so to cover that team. I was telling somebody the other day that they asked me on TV last week when the Warriors and the Celtics played if the Celtics team now was better than the one in 2008. And I said, don't disrespect them dudes in 2008, man. And that's with all due respect to the team now. I said, that team, 2008, was one of the most underrated teams in NBA history.
Yeah.
And if Garnett doesn't get hurt the next season, and they were like 23-4 at the time, he got hurt in Salt Lake. If he didn't hurt his knee, that team would have three-peated. No question. And they were just too good.
Right. When people ask, have you ever seen a Celtics team get out to a better start? That's the team that I point to. I said that 09 team, even though obviously it didn't end the way people expected, those first few months, they were just crushing.
They were sensational.
There was no championship hangover whatsoever.
Yeah. So, I think they to me, they seem like a machine. Yeah. And I watched them play, and every time passes were so precise, defense was so good. And you said underrated. When you think about having guys like Tony Allen on the bench and Leon Poe, and Tony Allen mentioned by Kobe Bryant said, the guy who guarded me better than anybody was Tony Allen. So you had your defensive players, Eddie House shooting from long distance,
Sam Cassell, PJ Brown.
It was just a combination of a bunch of great guys. And then you have your guy Perk, who was locked
Rondo.
And it's just
young Rondo.
It's like a cast of characters, though.
Yeah. And KG, I remember in training camp, Rondo, like, people forget this, Rondo was a huge question mark. Like, can they start this young point guard who was like third string the previous season on this team? And Garnett said, hey, we have faith in this kid. He's going to be a star. Wow. And that, like, I could see Rondo's, like, confidence, like, change after that. Garnett really took him under his wing, but, you know, I covered that team for 2 years, and it was amazing. I covered a championship. If you remember the video when Garnett goes, anything is possible. If you look behind, I'm standing right there. And I always will have that in NBA history. I'm standing behind Garnett when he says that. And
well, you know, he wasn't supposed to say that, though, right?
No, he's supposed to say impossible is nothing.
yeah, that's the Adidas tagline.
But now it's like a popular. I think he still got his money, the bonus, even though he messed it up. Say impossible is nothing. But that covering that team, man, put me on the map, and ultimately I ended up getting a job at Yahoo Sports. Max, you'll find this interesting. I've never said this to anybody publicly about it. So, and Globe might be pissed, but I'm going to say it now. In 2009, I was getting interest from Yahoo to come, right? Mm-hmm. Hadn't quite got an offer yet. And Adrian Wojnarowski was there. I was getting interest from him. So I got a tip that NBC Sports, which might have been called something else at the time, was going to hire a Celtics reporter. And the Globe had just had they cut our pay by 5%, and they're having some financial issues. And so I was open-minded to leaving. And so I went to Kevin Miller's office and said, hey, I hear you guys are going to, because I was doing some TV stuff, I hear you guys are going to be hiring somebody to be a reporter to cover the Celtics. I would love to have that job if you're interested in me. Kevin's like, well, we're not quite there yet, but I'll let you know if it happens. I was like, well, if you got it, I'll take it. I'll leave the Globe to come take this job. And so nothing happened. July of that year, 2009, I get the offer from Yahoo, sign a contract. I move to the Bay Area. I'm in San Francisco. I mean, in the Bay, in Oakland. He calls me and says, hey, remember we talked about that job? I'm like, yeah. He's like, it's open now. I want to hire you.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, man, I'm in Oakland. I already moved across the country. And he says, oh, man, we'll pay for you to come back. I'll move you back. I'll like match your salary. I'll give you more. I signed a contract. I tried to tell you in the spring that I was interested in coming and I would have taken the job and none of this might have happened, right? So I said, look, there's a guy you should look at. His name's Sherrod Blake. If I ain't going to be there, remember Sherrod when the Celtics played the Pistons in the playoffs? He did really good on TV. You should check him out. And Sherrod ended up getting the job.
Wow.
And then I told the sports editor at the Globe, along with Gregory Lee, who worked there at the time, I'm like, hey, there's this reporter in Boston. He used to cover the Sonics until they moved to Oklahoma City, and he lost his job and his paper closed down. And he's selling insurance right now. But I'm telling you, he'd be great covering the NBA and the Celtics. His name's Gary Washburn.
Wow.
Man.
So they gave that job to Gary. So Gary replaced me, and then Sherrod came to NBC. And then when Sherrod left, he got replaced by Vincent Goodwill in Detroit.
Wow.
Who's Sherrod's
Vincent works at Yahoo Sports as an NBA writer. Like, think about all that. Like, like how those, I mean, this is like inside baseball reporter stuff. I don't know if people in Boston care. But I leave, awesome, Sherrod comes, Gary comes, and then Vincent gets opportunity to cover the NBA.
Wow.
And if I never, like, if I went to NBC, maybe it'd be different. Like, who knows, like, how it would have all worked out. But, yeah, man, we laugh about that all the time, about how, like, it had a trickle down on four of us.
But
you never know in this business.
Yeah, that's crazy. You talk about that effect and how your decision opened up opportunities for other people. You just never know how things are going to run down for you, do you?
Yeah. And then, I mean, they tried to get me to come back, right? Now, and then I got offered a job covering the Warriors for the NBC station here. This lady tried to get me to leave, and I remember she wrote me a note. Yeah, I'm going to give you a lot more money than you get now. And I said, well, based on what you just gave me, I just took a pay cut.
Wow.
And she's like, what? I like, I don't know who your source is. That's a bad number you just gave me. I just took a $25,000 pay cut. And she passed me that note proud. And like, in fact, the dude that just left the job makes $25,000 more than that. So don't worry about me for this job. Like, it was really offensive.
Wow.
It's crazy. See, Mark, everything is, you can't call it. You can't predict this stuff. Like, you think 7 months ago, Joe Mazzulla thought to himself, well, maybe I'll be a head coach one day. You never know in this business. Like, things change, right? I mean, what was your initial reaction to that quick start, though? Were you taken aback? I mean, obviously the Celtics team they were on course to sort of respond in a big way from the NBA Finals appearance. But how do you make of this past couple of months and just that transition that they had to make with Joe Mazzulla leading the team?
You know, at first, and I told Joe this, like, I was like, why didn't Damon Stoudemire get the job? You know, I was like really curious about that. And I've known Damon for a while. He's coached at the University of Pacific with not a ton of resources and did well there in a really tough conference and had head coaching experience on, on the Division I level, played in the NBA. I thought he would be perfect, but Brad saw something in Joe, and I met with Joe in New Orleans a month ago, and then when I talked to him, I got it. I understood it.
What did you understand when you talked?
What happened?
I sat with him in his hotel room for a half an hour, did a story that's on Andscape right now, and I was extremely impressed by his poise, his maturity, his humility, his ability to lead humbly. He was basically like, look, I know you guys are certainly, everybody has some emotions about what happened, and I'm not trying to change that. You know, I'm not trying to tell you how you should feel. You feel how you want to feel. I want to help us win games and do what I need to do to help us win games. And he's also collaborative. He wants to know what the players are thinking. Like, what do you think we could do to improve? What do you think, Jason, what do you think we should do? Jalen, what do you think we should do? Marcus, you know, there's a lot of veteran guys on this team who've been in the NBA for a while and have great basketball IQs, and he picks their brain. He doesn't act like a sergeant. You know, he's a collaborative leader, which I think is extremely important and smart for him. And he's with that, I think, with his assistant coaches as well. He doesn't act like he knows everything. And so I think what's incredible to me, and I asked Tatum about him, I'm like, what sold you? He said, you know, he felt like when he got to be around him and the coach that left to the Jazz, that those two guys were different. He kind of felt like there was something special about both of them.
Oh.
And obviously the coach, Will, left. But he said from that first meeting that he had with Joe, he said there was just the right tone, the right energy, the right mentality, the collaboration stuff, like all that hit well with him and the team. So it kind of made everything seamless. And so to think that Joe has been able to like keep this team afloat like this without, like, if you didn't know they lost their coach, you would have known that they lost their coach. You had no idea. Like this had every potential to go south, to sink. Like it was, think about how nightmarish it was in training camp. Like for all that stuff to happen right when training camp was starting, it's not even really being talked about anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to ask
losing
you
in droves, it would have been talked about, but basketball wise, they have not skipped a beat.
Well,
and this is without Robert Williams.
I want to ask you this word, you know, how it felt in the world that I was in, everybody was in, when you heard the Ime explosion. How did it affect you or your colleagues? Because everybody just called me out the blue. Ime's gonna be fired. He's gonna be suspended for what? And it was just
I think what probably hit me the most is how it was handled. Did it have to be public? And I think the thing about it is, and I have strong respect for the Celtics organization, ownership, a lot of the owners I know well. I just wondered if it had to be public like it was, because I think it hurt so many people. Not just what happened, but for the women to get dragged into it, you know. Like
I don't know. I believe they just had to come clean, and the only thing you had to put it out there and let everything be heard and seen the way it happened. Because if they had, I remember talking to
but what I mean is like just more clear in terms of who it involved, because if it's not clear, then it leads to speculation. Mm-hmm. And that speculation led to a lot of women in the company being accused of doing something they had nothing to do with.
But they couldn't put that out there legally, you know, and start talking about these women. I think they've tried to be as quiet, and it's tough to do.
Like, I mean, you're right. Yeah. It's tough to do.
It was, you know, just like any scandal out there that we see now. You know, it's like, okay, how do you handle that? You know, you had a contract with Ime. I just think there was so many things that they had to just put out and let it. I was a former player, just like, I talked to him. Then he told me, he said, Max, I wish they had just told him he's going on leave for a while and then leave it like that. I said, when it finally got out when
it got out too.
And everybody, it was going to get out. You know everything was going to get out. And once it got out, the Celtics were going to be the ones looking like they had egg on their face instead of just, this is what happened. This is where we're going to go. And right now, dumb luck or whatever it is, it seems like it has worked for the organization. I do feel bad for Nia, because I heard her say some things like nobody in the organization, really reached out towards her. And I'm like, legally, are they able really to say that much to her?
I think the last part, what you said, is very sensitive. Like, one thing I did ask Joe, like, how much have you spoken to Ime? And I think they touched base until like the legal issue really hit. And I think, and said, you would know this better than both of us, I don't think the people working for the team can talk to him.
Yeah. It's, you know what? I don't know that per se, but I think that they're just trying to eliminate the possibility because of legal ramifications, which were around him taking, his suspension or whatever it might have been. But it would have been just as interesting if he had ended up, if Kyrie hadn't said anything, if he had ended up in Brooklyn. Brooklyn.
I was just about to say.
When Kyrie exploded, it was just like, no, we're not taking on any additional baggage.
Yeah, and then
that leads me to my next question, Mark. What do you make of that? Was that something that surprised you, that they sort of balked on that decision and that they took a step back after the backlash?
They already had an explosion that they were trying to douse out. They didn't need to add any more fuel to the fire. You know what I mean? It was just, and then I'm not sure if this is true, but I heard there were people within their organization and within the NBA that really had a problem with it happening, and that had an impact on the owner as well.
And coming to New York City on top of that, that was just... You got enough going on as it is, man. Like, how can we make this inferno even bigger? It's like this forest fire has already like burned like 100 miles of trees. What can we do more? You know what I mean? Let's add some lava to it. Yeah.
Could he save that team? Is he made the one guy that could save him, though?
Basketball can save them. Playing basketball and being healthy. I mean, as you see now. And then I think Jacques Vaughn is doing a great job. And I thought he should have got the job anyway. Guy who coached in Orlando. He paid his dues. He was up for the job with the Pelicans before Willie Green got it. I didn't understand why he wasn't deserving of the opportunity. And I kind of like it when teams go in-house to give somebody deserving an opportunity.
In your biggest, you said you left here. What has been your biggest surprises and some of your biggest disappointments with this league or whatever way you might see it?
In terms of
anything, whatever you think when you go on, you know how we sit around sometimes going, damn, man, I didn't see that. Or wow, I'm disappointed about whatever,
you know what? I mean, I don't know that any of us could have saw how big this league could get on social media. Like no one could have guessed that coming. The boon of Twitter, the boon of Instagram, like the social media impact it has had and will have and will continue to grow. And now also like the video impact on TV, like ESPN, Turner, and I believe that when this next deal is up, there's going to be another component, whether it's Prime Video or Apple TV. Like, I think it's going to be even more houses, not only just nationally, but globally. And another thing that is kind of to my surprise is that I do believe that, a lot of Americans are naive. They love football so much that they don't understand how big soccer is globally. The real football, it's the number one sport globally. But I do believe that the NBA is second. And a big reason of that is because of its international stars. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at the top 5 players in scoring, Tatum's like the only American, right?
He's the only one, yeah.
And everybody, all the other guys are from somewhere else.
And all of that.
all over the world. And so that just kind of tells you, like, I was in everywhere that I've been blessed through this job to travel all over the world. And they all know the NBA, man. They all follow the NBA. They don't all know Major League Baseball. Right. They don't all know the NFL.
And they're not casual fans, right? They know their stuff.
Like somebody was talking to Luau Deng, and he was saying, yeah, like kids in Sudan are watching Bobo.
Wow.
Because of Manute and because he's, from Sudanese. And
right.
The NBA, I wonder how many different countries are represented in the league. It's a global league. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, and said this might surprise you. People were talking so much about Seattle and Las Vegas. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they put a team in Mexico City.
Whoa.
When the next expansion comes.
Yeah, that's been discussed. Yeah.
And I've been writing a lot about it. Like, Mexico City has 30 million people. That's like 4 times bigger than New York City. Mm-hmm. They have the G League Capitanes playing there as an experiment right now. Because of the pandemic, they've been delayed 2 years. ESPN Mexico has like 30 million viewers.
Whoa.
There's even more viewership for this team. So team on a streaming service called Star Plus, which is shown throughout Latin America. So if you put so the Capitanas are in more homes than any NBA team.
Wow.
It's a G League team.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So if you put a team in Mexico City, you're not only going to be the team of the country of 30 million people, you're also going to be seen all over Latin America. It's going to make money on top of money on top of money.
Well, let me
and also push the game even more in Latin America, which if you put it in Vegas, like, it sounds sexy to put a team in Vegas, but like said, you know this, man, like you're on in Boston, right? TV and radio make a lot of money in Boston. Somebody was telling me that the Lakers make more in 1 week than the Grizzlies do all season on television. Wow. So being in a market where you have a lot of eyes is important. And Commissioner Adam Silver, who's in Mexico City right now for a game, like, you could tell, like, he's putting the tea leaves real big. They're like tree leaves now. They're not tea leaves anymore. Wow. Like, they're getting bigger and bigger. And if you look at Vegas, while it sounds sexy, like, what TV market? The 52nd in TV market. You can't show any games in California because there's 4 NBA teams in California who own all the rights to California. Can't show games in Arizona and New Mexico because of the Suns. Can't show games in Utah because of the Jazz. Can't show games in Colorado and Wyoming because of the Denver Nuggets. You can't show games in Oregon or Washington because of the Portland Trailblazers. So where are you going to show the games? I believe there's less people in Nevada than there are in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. So the TV aspect, I think, could be TV contract aspect. Like, if they bought a team there, like, they'll be way behind from a TV standpoint.
That's I want to ask you this other question, and to me, one of the biggest surprises since I've been around, and God bless him, I love him to death. But did you ever see Perk being Perk? Kendrick Perkins being Perk? I mean, I didn't see this. My mama called me yesterday.
Max, he keeps it on 100. That's what he does.
My mama called me the other day and said something about, I was watching this guy and he had a country accent and he said something about the Lakers and he said, I ain't never want to pay a fish for swimming. And my mom thought that was just the funniest thing, but Perk is going into this whole nother realm that, did you see this coming?
You know what?
Hell no. No.
Wait. I didn't see that coming, but I will say this. When I covered the team,
not shocked.
He was one of the greatest quotes in the league at the time. And because he was honest and his basketball IQ was great, he was like the one guy on the team that wasn't going to give you a politically correct answer. If they stumped, you always got to go. And it was funny because when I covered the team, oftentimes I would go at home games. I'll go listen to KG and Paul because they used to do their little stick together. and then you go in and talk to Ray. So a guy like Perk, you might miss Perk. And I would also always tell whoever was helping me at the game, whether it was Monique Walker or Julian Bembo, or we had a guy who was a big-time soccer writer used to help me out, Frank DeLappa. If one of them were helping me out, I'd be like, hey, man, make sure you go listen to Perk.
Wow.
I would always say that. Make sure because he always said something. He always had a great quote. And Perk, if you go read my stories, if you go back and read my old Globe stories, you probably see Perk's quotes throughout. Because he just, I was like, he was good. He's really, really good. And I'm so proud of this dude, man. Like,
yes.
Because he couldn't have seen this.
Right.
Because I remember being in Houston for a Warriors, like, Rockets playoff game about 5 years ago. And he was just starting to get his opportunity. Right. And I think it was like just like an ESPN app online thing before the game that he was doing with like Cassidy Hubbard. And then he heard them quote, you heard those quotes like your mom liked, right? Just all the like sayings and you think they're like stuff. He just makes, that's him. Yeah. And I think people just fell in love with his personality, his honesty, because you know what it is. Like Allen Iverson told me this, and I asked Allen once, why didn't he want to do TV? And he said, because I don't want to talk bad about people. Oh. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, and you don't necessarily have to talk bad about somebody, but you're going to have to give honest opinions.
Right.
And Perk isn't shy. And so, and he's funny, and he's got the country drawl, the Southern accent, the Houston thing. And it just makes him unique. It makes him different. It makes him fun. He always got a lot of energy. And you want to know how he feels, just ask him and look at his face. And he'll let you know. So he just grew and it was funny, man. We're doing NBA Today on Monday, and he had his what's his catchphrase? He has some catchphrase.
No, one of them is carry on. I know that.
Carry on.
Yeah. He has carry on clothing now. That's all you see him. Ask him about it.
Yeah, hey, people will buy that. I can see that.
Max, say, Big Perk, where's my carry on swag? I heard you got carry on swag now.
Oh,
he had
carry on money now.
He had a sport coat on the show on Monday, and he went to fix it, and it said carry on his hoodie. I'm like, this dude here got it. I like, Perk, where my swag at, Perk? Oh, I got you, big fella. I got you.
As always, as we say on this show, we try to keep it on the 100.
So I'm going to tell you a funny Perk story when I cover the Celtics. I'm going to leave the reporter's name out because he probably wouldn't like me saying
he caught the wrong side of this. All right.
So Perk got fined like $10,000 for something he said. And I asked a reporter to help me out and go ask Perk about it. So they were like trying to really do a good job and ask, Perk about it. And first, Perk didn't really say nothing. And Perk like got irritated. And he said, man, you think and so when the dude was leaving, he called him. Can I curse on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, he said, as the guy was walking away, he called him the reporter, right? He said, man, he kept grilling him about this $10,000. And the dude's feelings was really hurt. Like,
but I know
there was more said in the quote, yeah. But that Perk said that. All right.
No, but see, I know why Perk finished that. Because Perk he goes even further. Because it goes, then it goes. That's what he always does.
I left that part out.
That's what he said, wasn't it? That's what he said.
This ain't that kind of family show. We'll
Well, I'll let you finish the sentence. Yeah. Maybe that's what he said. I can't confirm
exactly what he talks about.
Wait, but what the reporter said about that part? Or what was it in general?
No, that's what he said to the reporter as he walked away. So the reporter's like crushed that he said that to him, right? And then I said, Perk, I want to talk.
Like, I'm not a bitch ass N-word. Don't call me that.
Yeah, and I said, Perk, man, why'd you call that man that? Man, you really hurt his feelings. He goes, shit, Spears, you think I'll give an F about $10,000? He's asking too many damn questions about that.
Wow.
Yeah, I could see that. It sounds just like him, man.
One thing funny I'll say now.
Max, you be having your lines too. You have those southern lines. Well, not those kind of lines.
I'll say this. You'll like this, Max. We were in Atlanta, and I'll just say I was at a late night establishment in Atlanta. Right?
Okay. Did they have chicken wings there?
They had chicken wings and dancing.
Okay.
Happened to be lemon pepper.
You know where you at. Okay.
Yeah. So the next day I'm at practice, and Perk goes up to me, he goes, what was you doing last night, Spears? And I said, apparently I was doing the same thing you was doing. He's like, yeah, I saw you in there. And I said, well, why didn't you say hi? Why didn't you talk? Man, I didn't want that in the paper. I said, Perk, I was there too. Like, why would I put that in the paper?
Yeah.
That's not how media works.
He's like, yeah, that's a good point, Spears. I didn't even think about it that way.
Yo, speaking of, Mark, I'm glad you brought this up.
I'm scared to hear what the speaking of is.
The first round matchup against the Hawks. Is it true? The legend behind it is that's the reason why that series went 7 games. That the team wasn't all the way focused, if you will, when they went to Atlanta for those games. Remember, they lost every road game in that.
I'm gonna give Atlanta credit, man. Seth was there. They played their tails off, and I do think, and Garnett will be mad at me for saying this, that the only time I saw a crowd rattle him.
Wow.
Like the only time I saw a crowd make an impact on him.
Okay.
In Atlanta. Like that crowd, remember they were like chanting Hawks in 7. Hawks in 7. And the Celtics beat them down in game 7.
Right.
But
they lost every game over there.
They those guys have fun wherever they went.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Okay. Yeah, they.
That was the rumor that Doc had to give him a little speech
there than anywhere else, but not putting their business out on the street. But it wasn't like they just sat in the hotel room all day. Like they got out, they had fun. I just think that Atlanta was. Think about it. They had Joe Johnson, right? They had Al Horford.
Yeah, young Al. That's right.
Yeah, young Al Horford, and they had Josh Smith, who was athletic and tough to deal with. Like, they were well coached. I think Woody was a coach, right? Mike Woodson?
Yep, Mike Woodson.
No, they weren't better, and it shouldn't have went 7.
But they weren't afraid.
No.
They were not afraid.
They were not afraid, and they were good. So I'm not going to put that on the element.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, last one.
I think that would probably be the assumption, but I'm gonna give that Hawks team respect. Like they were good.
Okay. All right, last one for me, man. Seeing this whole like rift between Pierce Garnett and Ray and all that, and just to see the way it all came to an end at Kevin Garnett's jersey retirement ceremony, just taking through like that whole thing from your perspective, right? You obviously you're very close to that team. You saw the whole thing play out. What was that like?
It was kind of sad to see. And, I don't know if Rondo's been able to clear things up with Ray yet.
Oh, Rondo too, that's right. Yeah.
Which might be even the harder deal than all of it. I know there was a bunch of times where Doc would say, man, I need to fix that. I'm trying to fix it. I'm working on it. Behind the scenes, I'm working on it. And so I actually was in Africa for the Basketball Africa League and I came back, I think, the day before Garnett's game. So I was like coming back from Africa, man, I was worn out. Mm-hmm. But I felt like guilty about not being at his because I went to Pierce's, but I missed Garnett's and I really wanted to be there. But it was like good to see because I think let me grab this up. You guys hold on real quick.
All right, now you good. What you got?
Man, he really getting ready to get serious about this thing, Josue. Take it off. This must be some serious ammo because I'm getting
those are the favorite years of his career, man.
Oh man, it just sounds like it's like things that made
show and tell. And I'm a wine guy, and I never.
What we got?
Can you see it?
Oh man, okay. Is that from the right after 08?
Wow.
No, this was it says new team, new passion, new network. Comcast Sportsnet. It's a nice bottle of Gigante, dry red wine. But it's like that image of those three guys is always going to be part of Celtics lore. So it was tough to see them separated. And I actually talked to Ray in 2000 when he got in to the Hall of Fame, right?
2019, I think it was.
20, I think. And but it was delayed. And I think it was Hall of Fame. And I talked to him, and I could tell he was pained by it. Like the slide of not being invited to the 10-year anniversary and all that stuff. And I think because of the pandemic, that team probably still hasn't been celebrated well in Boston yet, and probably should be. But like whether it's on this bottle or whether it's that picture at the Coliseum or after their championship, like I always envision them three guys together. So it was good to see them kind of get and let bygones be bygones. And hopefully in the future, like we'll see them together more, talking about that experience again. Because the one thing I've always been impressed about those three guys is they were in their prime, said, like, you remember, and they if you ever have a team, like I say this about teams all the time that have three stars in their prime, you want to learn how to put your egos aside for a championship, go talk to them.
Yeah.
Bring one of them in and ask them how they did it. Because all of them sacrifice. But I think what they showed you is you could sacrifice and gain and build, bear more fruit. Like, yeah, each of their scoring averages dropped, and Garnett probably had the lowest scoring average of his career.
Yeah.
Averaging like 16, but they won. They kicked everybody's tail in, and they won a championship. And it's all three of their own lone championships, but they'll forever be NBA champions. And so it's good to see them like figure that out. But yeah, I know the wine tastes terrible now because it's been sitting in the room, but I just always, I have different little weird mementos, but I still have this.
Well, you know what? And I'm going to hit you with the last one before you let you go. First, we really appreciate you. I did talk to Ray myself, and we did a podcast, and Ray was hurt. He was very hurt by, just all the things were said by him. And I remember asking, I had a podcast also with Kevin Garnett and Paul, and it was a Celtic podcast. And I asked at that time, I said, KG, when are you going to bring Ray back in the fold? And KG kind of like, Max, I don't want. I said, no, man. I said, you're the godfather of this thing. And if this thing is going to happen, I couldn't have been more happy when he called Ray up and then they got the big hug in front of everybody.
Oh, man.
You're next. I mean, it just really showed me that, they had kind of squashed that thing and it went by its way. Lastly, what I want to ask you, Josue knows I always do this because you are this.
That's a great question.
Yeah. We're building a Mount Rushmore in the back of your house. And what would be the four people on your Mount Rushmore in the sports pavilion that you'd have built?
So not Celtics, just sports.
Anybody. This is yours. This is your Mount Rushmore. Nobody else's. So it can't be wrong. So I just want to.
It'd probably be more.
Eras,
more unique than you would probably think. And it could be any sports or just basketball.
Any sport. You can bring all we can have is four people, though. That's all.
First person I put is Earl Lloyd.
Wow.
Okay.
You know who that is, Joe?
No, I don't. I'm like, okay.
So I'm going to do another show and tell. This is from Mr. Lloyd. personally gave this to me. I actually gave one to Kevin Garnett, and I gave it to him, and it's signed by him.
Wow.
First, he's passed away, but he's the first Black player in NBA history. And I got a chance to spend a lot of time with him. Went to Tennessee like in the early 2000s and did a story with him in this little small town that he lived in. So the history of the league, the pioneers in the league have always been important to me.
Okay.
And telling the history of Black players has always been important to me. So I got to know the first Black player ever drafted in NBA. I know to ever play in a game. Halloween 1950.
Wow.
First Black, it was Earl Lloyd. There was also Chuck Cooper.
First Celtics.
Yeah. Well, he was actually the first player drafted.
Whoa.
Chuck Cooper. And then the first player to have an NBA, Black player to have an NBA, not the first player drafted, first Black player. First Black player with an NBA contract was Sweetwater Clifton, who had his contract traded from the Globetrotters to the Knicks.
Whoa. And
so, but they were all 1950-51 season, but Earl Lloyd, because of the scheduling quirk, played first.
Wow.
But three guys deserve credit.
Okay.
So he'd be on there.
So it was the same day though, huh? Wow.
Well, he played and they played like a couple days later. But he has a distinction. Like Chuck was drafted higher than him. Chuck was like third round, Earl was like seventh, but he played first. But they all three deserve credit. Number two, probably another obscure one, which would surprise you, is Ricky Berry. Not Rick Berry, Ricky Berry. Berry played in the NBA for a year. When I was growing up, he was a San Jose State superstar. Played on the Pan Am Games, made the all-rookie team, and said he might have played against him. I don't know if you remember him.
Don't remember that.
Kings, he played the 88-89 season. Were you still playing that?
Yeah. No, that was my last year. I think I had finished there.
Yeah. So he wore number 34 for San Jose State. And I used to go to their camps, used to go to their game. He was a pro I could touch. Wow. And I wore a 34 because of him. And he committed suicide after his rookie season when I was going to my senior year in high school. And it like had a profound impact on me. But I still wore 34, you know. And I remember my mom wanted me to change my number. I said, "No, Ma, I still love Ricky. I always will love Ricky. But I love life. So I want to be here. Like you ain't got to worry about. I'm worried about going, not like doing something to myself.
I'm not going to take my own life. No.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. As best I can. Like, right. And so I guess the other two, probably for me as a kid, I love Ricky Henderson.
Okay.
Growing up in the Bay Area, he was like, I used to go to Safeway Saturdays, where we used to pay $5 and you could get a ticket, a hot dog, chips, and sunflower seeds in a soda pop. I used to take the BART train.
$5, shit.
For $5, you would get all that. So
can't even get a soda now with that.
Has anybody ever had as much swagger as he has?
Man.
I mean, he knew he was good. He wanted you to know, and he would tell anybody how good he was.
Yeah, no, Ricky Henderson was a bad dude. I'm like reading his book now, and it's funny, I got to cover him. I covered baseball before I covered the NBA for like 2 years. I covered the Angels and the Dodgers, and I remember he gave me a quote. He said, I asked him about being a great leadoff hitter. He said, "I am the greatest leadoff hitter that ever be." And so I always remember that. And then let me see, number 4. Looking in my room.
Why you gotta look around your room? You should know.
It's gonna be reminded, man.
Number 4.
I love this question.
It's
always in the joke way. It's always number 4, which always gets me.
Yeah.
People always.
You know what? I'm gonna say Magic Johnson.
Oh, okay.
And because I've had
now I'm going to cut the interview off right now. That's why
I'm sorry.
I hate that too.
You know, because I'm probably in the minority, but I still feel like to this day, and then you'll probably cut me off when I say this, that Magic Johnson's the greatest player ever.
Wow,
man.
And I just felt like that because he changed the NBA. Like a lot of people are indebted to him and Bird for changing the NBA. But Magic not only like helped the NBA survive, but he brought flair to it. And he played 5 positions and made everybody better.
Yeah.
So I just always had a big time respect for his game and what he did, and just how fun he was to watch. And he wasn't necessarily my favorite player, but I just thought he was just great. So he's number 4.
And I'll only say this to you, and I'll only say, and to our listeners, part of that I do respect, and I respect, and I've said this about him more. As a basketball player, I absolutely hated him, but it was a hate-respect thing that I love. Yeah. But I am, and I said this on his documentary they had me on, I said I respect him more as a black man, as an entrepreneur, as what he did for AIDS, as what he's done. He has been as big as anybody I know, or an ambassador of the game, especially after the game.
And he taught players how to make money off the court.
Yeah, and that to me is just so important when I think of him. I mean, he busted in the room. Lastly, it was myself, Kurt Rambis, Michael Cooper, and Brian Scalabrine. We were doing something for a Lakers game, and we were all in there talking, and Jeannie Buss was in there, and Wick was in there, and a whole bunch of people. And who walks in the door and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jeannie, I didn't know you guys were having a meeting. But by the way, let me go up on stage and take the microphone from these dudes because they don't know what they're talking about." And he goes to shake my hand, and I say, "I ain't shaking your damn hand, man. Get the hell out of here." He said, "No, man, show me love." But he is that kind of guy, and I respect your opinion on that. But I just hate that it's Magic at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, I saved that one for you.
Yeah, you did. You did. It hurt. It's gonna leave a mark, but don't.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say
you tarnished the whole interview, but
I'm gonna say this: the most disrespected NBA superstar ever is Larry Bird.
Wow.
A fact like that, he isn't mentioned when we talk about the greats, really, is incredible to me. I never seen, he busted so many dudes, man. And I remember just watching him as a kid. I'm like, dang, he be making these brothers look terrible, man. Like the way he be killing them.
Whoa, man. You know what?
And letting them know about it.
You know what? You stepping on my toes again, because the first NBA player he made look bad was me. Because I was the first practice. I wasn't in public. I was like, this white guy can't play. This is some bullshit they bringing in. And that first practice, at the end I got through playing, I remember the first time I got to the first black person I saw that day, I said, you know what? A fucking white guy can play right there. Yeah. So I do understand really. And then I always tell people this. I said, I knew Larry Bird was going to be great because I started seeing Larry Bird in the black barbershop. There was Jesus, the dinner, Malcolm X, and then there was a picture of Larry Bird in the black barbershop. I was like, man, get the hell out of here. Yeah. So that's when I knew he had really made it. Along with Spike Lee's movie, though. That was just as good.
Oh, man. Senior NBA writer for ESPN and Andscape, Marc Spears. Appreciate you, man. Can't say that enough. Also, the author, alongside Gary Washburn, of the Spencer Haywood rule. What is that? What does that mean exactly? Why don't you let people know real quick about this book?
No, we did
I love it, man. It came out a couple of years ago, and it's incredible.
I did a biography on Spencer Haywood. Great man. Somebody said certainly knows. Very complicated story, but an amazing read. Like, please get the book, read the book. You'll fly through it. His story is like, I call him the Black Forrest Gump.
Wow.
So many fascinating things that happened in his life.
You know what? But before that, tell me this story. But I got to hear this. You got to tell people this about the thing with Nike that I keep hearing about. That's not a rumor.
Oh, yeah.
That Nike
true. Like, Spencer Haywood was offered like a deal with Nike where they offered him cash or stock, and he took the cash. You know, because he didn't think it was going to, he's like, man, that stock wasn't going to be worth nothing. I mean, you kind of get it now, right?
Yes.
Like, it makes, I mean, if you really think about it, I'm sorry, at that time, you can understand why he's like, this Nike thing. But, he certainly wouldn't have to do any more NBA appearances if he did that.
I heard the deal would have been about $6 billion or something right now. He'd be on it.
Today?
Someplace in that area.
Hey, but said, how many people have tried to offer you stock that would end up being
No, absolutely.
I got about 5 of those.
I was going to say, that happened to you too, Max?
Shouldn't we talk about Bitcoin right now or what?
Yeah, right.
Man, thanks again, man, for coming on that show.
Hey,
we
man,
appreciate it.
if y'all don't have me on at least once a year, I'm going to have a problem, man.
Well, we will, brother. Thank you very much for coming on with us.
All right.
We'll make that happen for sure.
All right.
Take care.
Peace.
Peace.